From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Have you made some time for trees in your life? Why, it may be just what the doctor ordered. The fight for food.
It's about daily survival. When the people are hungry, they rebel.
How a war thousands of miles away is putting millions of people in jeopardy of going hungry, as farmers across a good part of the country battle high heat.
If we get into this pollination and it is hot as is forecast, we could easily lose some yield then.
How concerns are helping to move markets right now on AgDay. Good morning and thanks for joining us for AgDay. I'm Michelle Rook in for Clinton Griffiths, who's on assignment. Our weather rally in the row crops is coming a bit later than normal this year. Corn and soybean markets have recovered from the washout of the funds the last few weeks with help from a hotter, drier forecast, especially in the last 2 weeks in July. That's a concern right now with row crops getting planted late and lagging in development. Crop specialists note that there's some corn pollination taking place in the central corn belt, but very little farther north. Plus, last week the drought monitor showed an increase in drought in some of those key production areas. Market analysts tell me that the market is concerned the heat and dryness will hit right at critical pollination stage, and so it's adding weather premium.
And we anticipate that a good chunk of the pollination is probably going to occur in the second and then maybe even more so the third week of July this year. And it's the lateness and the timing of the pollination that is still important. And if we get into this pollination and it is hot as is forecast, we could easily lose some yield then.
Beadle says the corn and soybean markets were already putting in weather premium last week, which was needed after the recent round of fund liquidation. So he thinks D's corn needs to rally back to at least $6.50 to be comfortable. The soybean market will get even more nervous if dry conditions hang on through August. And the heat not appearing to have impacted crop conditions too much at this point. Corn still reported to be at 64% good to excellent, matching last week's condition report. However, only 15% of the corn is silking, 10% behind normal. Soybeans reported to be 62% good to excellent. That's down 1% from last week. Cotton now 39% good to excellent. That's up 3%. And winter wheat harvest now at 63% nationally. And those warm, humid conditions look to continue over much of the country this week. We're also keeping a close eye on the Gulf Coast. Meteorologist Matt Yurosavik joins us with an update.
Yeah, Michelle, that's right. We've got another pattern here where it's going to be warm and humid right through the middle part of the country. Temperatures in the 90s and even some triple digits out there as we head through this afternoon. And you can see all of that big ridge going right all the way up into southern parts of Canada, taking those 80s and even some 90s all the way up into portions of the northern Corn Belt, into the northern plains. But look down around Texas and into parts of the Gulf Coast with temperatures again topping out later this afternoon in the 90s and just above 100 degrees. And then if we focus in on the Gulf Coast, a lot of rain over the next couple of days is stalled out front, a couple of lows moving on through, and that rain is going to really add up quickly with some of those heavier thunderstorms. And if we can see some of that rainfall there topping out over 4, 5, 6 inches, and that's just through the rest of this week. So something that we're going to have to continue to keep an eye on there for most of the Gulf Coast, especially as we head towards the latter half of this week. And we'll keep you updated on that right here on AgDay. And lots of hands on the farm can help make the job lighter. Joey Hansen of South Dakota sharing this photo of his son. And Joey says his son calls this a terrible job, but he calls it character building. I'll have more on your forecast coming up.
Thanks, Matt. Happening right now, hotter, drier weather isn't helping crews battling a growing fire inside Yosemite National Park. It surpassed 2,300 acres yesterday. It's burning inside the grove where the park's ancient sequoias are located. Park officials believe their mitigation efforts will protect the trees from major damage. Those hot and dry conditions are expected to persist through the end of the week. Just northwest of the fire, there's talk that California regulators may force many growers to stop diverting water from the Sacramento River. It's reported regulators have begun curtailing the water rights of many farms and irrigation districts along the river. The order, which took effect last week, puts a hold on about 5,800 water rights across the Sacramento and San Joaquin Rivers watersheds. It's due to the severity of California's extreme drought. Researchers at UC Merced estimate reduced water deliveries last year resulted in 395,000 acres of cropland left dry and unplanted. There's been no decision announced yet on the possibility of rolling back China import tariffs, but Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo has said she expects a decision shortly, telling NBC's Meet the Press over the weekend, quote, lifting tariffs isn't going to bring down top-line inflation in a very significant way. But she said it could potentially help consumers with the price of household goods. The president's decision is expected by many sometime this month. Russian troops are destroying Ukrainian crops. Ukraine's foreign ministry spokesperson sharing this photo on Twitter showing a fire consuming a grain field in the southeastern part of the country. He said to, quote, remember this picture every time Russians say they care about global food security, end quote, adding that millions of people across the world will face hunger because of Russia's war. And Russia's blockade of millions of tons of Ukraine's grain is now having severe consequences on North Africa. A few days ago, the heavily indebted Tunisia government secured an emergency $130 million loan from the World Bank just to buy enough flour to feed their population. And as David McKenzie reports from Tunisia, the impact of the war couldn't have come at a worse time.
Racing to feed a nation in the closing days of Tunisia's summer harvest. Russia's cynical ploy to hold hostage more than 20 million tons of Ukrainian grain is leading to a food crisis here in Tunisia and much of North Africa. Are you worried it will have a long-term impact on Tunisia?
The war has really impacted both the consumer and our agricultural productions. Right now, every country must become self-reliant. If that's not possible, things are going to get very difficult.
They're scrambling to increase that production and change consumer habits. In sun-baked Tunisia, farmers grow hard wheat to make pasta and couscous. But for soft wheat, the wheat that makes bread, Tunisia gets around 60% of it from Ukraine and Russia. And an official told me that they'll never be able to make up that number here. Not in 5 years, not even in 10. That spells trouble, says Shukri Amnoudi. We can only sell what the government gives us, he says. The baguettes are subsidized by a government heavily in debt. Tunisia can barely afford imported flour from outside of Ukraine. It's about daily survival. When the people are hungry, they rebel, he says. Here, they are just recovering from a crushing COVID pandemic and a decade of political uncertainty. The impact of the war in Ukraine could not have come at a worse time. Even retired professionals like Huria Boussad and her husband can only afford a few luxuries.
The prices, all the time, they are going up.
And what does that mean for you and your family?
Young people, they cannot marry now. They don't have enough money to live. They cannot have a family.
I've sold nothing today, says Nasir Tamomi, absolutely nothing. This place should be jam-packed before the Eid holiday, he says, but nobody can afford meat. On the roadside, farmers like Walid are struggling to sell their sheep for Eid celebrations. The sheep don't seem to mind. Animal feed prices are doubled because of Ukraine. It's a chain reaction that's bad enough now, he says. But the effect of the war is really going to be felt next year.
And that's David McKenzie reporting. Ukraine now has a new port to help move grain out of the country. It's through a port in Romania along the Danube River. The Romanian port has started to use a floating crane to reload crops coming in on barges from Ukraine and onto commercial ships, which will then take the grain to Romanian Black Sea ports. The grains can also be stored in a silo at the port. When we come back, we'll have more discussion on these weather markets and the impact of USDA reports. And later, why you might want to start building a little time amid the trees in your day in the country.
AgDay is brought to you by the End Zone by Farm Shop MFG, which allows you to rehydrate your soybeans from 10 to 13%. On a 20,000 bushel bin, that's an extra semi-load added to your bottom line. Order your End Zone fan control by July 31st and receive $200 off.
The contract between the West Coast Port Union and the Pacific Maritime Association is now expired, but the Labor Secretary remains upbeat that a deal can be achieved. In a joint statement, the union and the Pacific Maritime Association both said they want to avoid a lockout or a strike, saying while there will no longer be a contract extension, cargo will keep moving. U.S. Labor Secretary Marty Walsh says he has been in contact with both sides almost daily. He says both sides tell him they're in a good place and are moving forward. The unions represent almost 23,000 West Coast dock workers, including those at the nation's busiest port, Los Angeles Long Beach. Joining us with market analysis, Darren Fry, Water Street Solutions. Darren, row crop sector looked like it was trying to put weather premium in on Monday.
Yeah, we were trying to do some weather premium there starting out Sunday night, but a lot of it just was given back as forecasts turned wetter, and we really saw some poor closes there on Monday to finish up the day. Really, considering how good things started out, things turned south in a hurry.
Was that just because the wheat market was down so hard as well, with that sharply higher dollar index up almost a point?
Yeah, I think that was some of it. Plus, there were some rumors of the corridor opening back up in Ukraine for wheat, and with a strong dollar, wheat was way off the highs. I mean, if you sold the opening on Sunday night, you look like a champ, but things really finished on the lows.
So what do you think about the report coming up today? We're not looking at major revisions really, except for maybe soybeans?
Yeah, I would say that's fair. You had that surprise acreage number here at the end of June, and they have to get that into the balance sheet. So the average trade guess is coming down 70 million bushels on soybeans, so that carry out around 210. I really don't see anything else across the board, and just not sure that nothing out of the ordinary is going to happen. And really it'll come down to just weather and what we have for the weekend coming up here and then beyond. We're supposed to get pretty hot after next weekend, so those that don't get rain could be in for some real crop stress.
Right, and funds got a lot of liquidation done, so they should have a little ammo, I would think. What about the cattle market? A nice up day on Monday. Was that weather premium at all?
There could have been some weather premium. The hottest temperatures are going to come into the western Corn Belt. We know we've had some problems with heat in the past with, cattle and in hot times like we're going to have next week. And so it could be that. Longer term, I'm a bull in the cattle, even though we have the facing some economic recession here going forward. But I really like the action that we saw yesterday, feeder cattle as well. And hopefully this is the start of something.
All right, thanks so much for joining us. You can get full analysis of Darren Fry and my conversation on agweb.com. More Ag Day coming up.
For marketing strategy specific to your operation, contact Water Street Solutions at 866-249-2528 or online at www.waterstreet.org. Ag Day, sponsored by Total Acre. Randy Dowdy and David Hula's Next Level program is now Total Acre. We're still focused on farmers helping farmers while hitting record yields and ROI. Check us out at totalacre.com.
Your Savick joins us this morning, and weather market right now in the row crops. We're watching how dry it's going to be and how hot it's going to be. What's in the forecast?
Yeah, and we've got a lot of that warm weather continuing through the middle part of the country and a little bit of rain coming our way, and we'll take a look at that right here. And you can see that precipitation over the last 24 hours through early on Tuesday morning. A lot going on in the south and east, especially in parts of Florida. But if we put this into motion, what you're going to notice is not a whole lot going on right through the middle part of the country. A couple of showers coming in late in the week, but really most of the action is going to be down here in the southeast, stalled out front, couple of lows kind of moving on through, and that's going to bring in a lot of rainfall. Upwards of 4, 5, 6 inches locally could be seen, especially in parts of Alabama, Mississippi, and right along the Gulf Coast. More of that coming up into parts of the Carolinas as well. And then some more scattered shower and thunderstorm activity back there in parts of the Four Corners region. Otherwise, mostly dry for much of the country. threat for stronger storms heading into today. A couple of those into the upper Midwest there, but then that cold front continuing to advance through the mid-Atlantic states and up into the Northeast. Really the 95 corridor back through central Pennsylvania and parts of the Appalachian Mountains there. That is where we're going to be seeing a lot of that chance for a couple of stronger storms, some damaging winds, and some small hail. That's going to be the main threats associated with that cold front there. And that cold front here, right across parts of Pennsylvania, moving eastward. Those storms fire up during the heat of the day, especially during the afternoon. But notice high pressure through the center of the country, back in the west, and some of those higher elevation rain showers there, along with some thunderstorms. And then we've got the stalled out front in the south and east, and that's going to continue to be the case. That stalled out front not going anywhere, and that cold front will crash into the stalled out front, creating more chances for rain and storms as we head through the middle part of the week. And temperatures, again, still going to be very, very warm this afternoon. And even into tomorrow, you'll notice where that humidity stays very, very high with low temperatures in the 70s. And then we're back right up into the 90s and triple digits for parts of the middle of the country as we head into tomorrow afternoon, with feels like temperatures that could be closer to 110 or 115 degrees across parts of Texas and the deep south. And we'll continuing to track that and that rainfall right here on Ag Day. We'll have another update for you tomorrow. That's a look around the country. Now let's take a look at the weather where you live. Only on to New York, scattered showers, a high near 82 degrees. Mobile, Alabama, heavy thunderstorms likely, a high near 85. And Grants, New Mexico, heavy rain and thunderstorms likely, a high near 85 degrees.
Coming up, the battle dairy exporters continue to face. Plus an update on the protests going on in the Netherlands from a Dutch dairy farmer's perspective.
Ag Day is brought to you by MetLife Investment Management's Agricultural Finance Group. MetLife Investment Management is positioned to help you grow your business with a competitive farm, ranch, and agribusiness loan. To learn more, visit investments.metlife.com/agriculture.
The Ocean Shipping Reform Act is now the law, but dairy officials say there is still work to do to make sure U.S. dairy products keep moving overseas. Tony Rice is the trade policy manager for the National Milk Producers Federation and the U.S. Dairy Export Council. Rice says despite the law, the situation hasn't improved significantly. He says it's important to get trade issues ironed out because the EU and New Zealand have shown they're not going to be able to keep pace in the coming years.
Fortunately, there's still a lot of difficulties with a shortage of labor, shortage of truckers, a shortage of containers, all compiling to a backlog throughout the entire supply chain. And looking at the numbers of empty containers leaving the major West Coast ports, the number hasn't improved. It's still around 70% through the last 3-4 months here. That hasn't changed from the last part of last year.
Rice says last year U.S. dairy exporters lost about $1.5 billion due to the supply chain crunch. We've been keeping you updated on this. Dutch dairy farmers protesting government plans to dramatically cut emissions of nitrogen oxide and ammonia. The Dutch government aims to slash nitrogen emissions by 50% by 2030. It estimates a 30% cut in the number of livestock is needed. Many farmers argue the goals are poorly conceived and unfair. One dairy farmer providing insight to the Global Farmer Network. She says farmers there favor regulations that balance the need to produce food with the need to protect the environment. And she says they're already using precision farming techniques to conserve fertilizer along with planting cover crops. But she says farmers shouldn't have to carry all the burden and that the government shouldn't just target only farms and agriculture for now. Still ahead, could trees be trying to tell us something? Why a little tree time may be good for your health and the country.
Find farm equipment on Machinery Pete's July 19th online auction. No reserve, no buyer fees. Start bidding now at auctions.machinerypete.com.
Can trees help you live longer? One researcher says yes. Michelle Kondo is a social scientist with the U.S. Forest Service. She says studies of millions of people around the world confirm that people live longer when they live in a greener environment. The results show it could be an emotional or mental response to them. Kondo says they did a study measuring people's moods and emotions. They tracked participants' locations throughout the day. They would receive pop-up messages on their phones to answer a brief survey about how they were feeling. The results, when people were around or near trees, positive emotions were improved and negative emotions decreased. Kondo also did another study showing people's heart rate slowing down when they were near trees and greenery. She has concluded that people who have access to parks, gardens, trees, and forests often enjoy an improved quality of life. That's all the time we have for this morning. Thanks for watching. For all of us here at AgDay, have yourself a great day.
Registration is open for the 2022 Pro Farmer Crop Tour. Join our team as we gain insight on the 2022 growing season in person or online. Visit profarmercroptour.com/register to select the stop nearest you.